Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Welcome to another Wednesday webinar. We're going to get started at 1 p.m. Eastern. So let's just give people a few minutes to join here. Thank you all for being a part of this. All right. Once again, if you are just joining now, welcome to Wednesday webinars. We'll get started at 1 p.m. Eastern here. Sit back and wait. And thank you for being a part of these. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Rob Warning, and yes, it is quite a last name. All right. So today we're going to be talking about why cookie cutter websites don't cut it. So specifically, we'll be talking about the benefits of utilizing a flooring specific website vendor. But before that, let me introduce myself. So like I said, I am Rob Warning. I am a product manager here at Broadloom. So my role is to manage the strategy and the development of the plans, the website products, and help you flooring dealers grow and accomplish their goals. A little fun fact about myself, I did used to ride semi-professional BMX. I'm a pretty tall dude, so I imagine it was kind of awkward seeing me ride a little kid's bike, but they did call me Rob Danger Warning. That was what all the announcers like to say. So jumping right into this though, the first thing I wanted to talk about here before we kind of break this down a little bit more specific is, what makes a website good, right? So I like to think of it with two major things, and then we'll talk about these 3 points that I have broken down here. Is really, if you think about it, what is a website supposed to do? A website is supposed to communicate the information that you need to communicate and drive the users towards the action that you want them to take. So emphasis on the you there, right? So there's a lot of things that go into making a website good, getting people to there, your SEO, word of mouth, et cetera, et cetera. So once you have a consumer on your website, what's going to make that experience good? And that's where these 3 points come in. So the first point that I have here is a good user experience. A lot of times I've gone to websites myself or tried to use an app or something like that, and I end up being more confused and not able to really find or do what I'm trying to accomplish. So if you think about it, a good user experience, what it really does is it builds positive emotion to your brand, and it keeps that user focused on their task. As soon as someone has to think about how to use your website or where they need to go and all that stuff, that's where you've potentially lost them. We'll see some statistics about this later. Some of the things that we do here at Broadloom to ensure a good user experience is do a lot of testing to figure out what works, what doesn't, where this button should be, where that button should be, this stuff like that, right? And I know personally, I've had a lot of really great ideas about what I think makes a user experience good, and it ends up, not necessarily working out, right? So another great aspect that we do here at Broadloom is making sure that all of our websites work well on all devices. Statistics show that up to 50% of users these days are using mobile, and I've seen, all the way up to 75, 80%. So we really kind of are in that era of being a mobile first platform or a mobile first world, right? So to give you an example of a bad user experience here, I recently had to book a trip down to Florida, and I was on the Marriott website app, and every time I tried to do something, it would just freeze up on me or take forever. Eventually, I got so sick of it, I had to go to the desktop version, and it just really wasn't really working, right? So that's not what we want to see here. We want to make sure that that experience on our website is really providing, that best experience, right? So the second point here is, does your website tell the story? If you think about it, your website is really kind of an extension of your brand, of your business. And does that website represent that? Does it tell the story, you know, that you're trying to tell? Does it say, hey, here's why I matter, and this is what sets me apart from my competitor down the street, right? So this is going to tie into my first point earlier, but does your website communicate? Does that experience really communicate what it is that you want it to add? You want to make sure that when they land on that website, oh, I'm sorry, skipping pages here on accident. Well, when they land on that website, it brings them to where it gets them to where they want. You get the information that they need. You're communicating that story. You're telling your brand. You're doing all of that stuff. The way that you kind of planned it, right? So at Broadloom, a lot of things that we do here is we help the dealers tell a story. We have the content designed for that, right? We have packages that people can purchase and do stuff like that, where we're constantly adding new content, improving the SEO, doing all that stuff to really make that stand out and really have that message clear. And then the last step here is clear call to actions. So like I said earlier, you really want to make sure that not only are you communicating the information that you want to communicate, but you are driving that user to the path that you want them to go towards, right? So do you have, clear call to actions on your website? Where are you trying to get this user? What are you trying to get them to do? If that's clicking a call, whether that's sending a lead, whether that's browsing your inventory, all of that stuff, you want to be able to do that, right? So we know that, industry agnostic. So apart from industry, a good website tends to convert around 3%. So we really want to make sure that that's what we're achieving, and hopefully we're doing more than that, right? So a recent example of this, where this wasn't done right, is, a friend of mine, he recommended some solar panel company for my house here, and I was really excited about it. I went on their website, and I couldn't figure out how to get a hold of anybody. Eventually, I had to go, "Hey, man, I'm on their website. I can't figure this out." And he goes, "Oh, well, here's the contact information." So if I wasn't really interested in that, it would have been really hard if I didn't know this guy, it would have been really hard for me to, get what I was looking to get. So we want to make sure that our call to actions are clear. We know where we're driving those end users, and we're making it, a detailed path that really makes sense, right? So, like I said, in the beginning of this, I wanted to kind of talk about why it matters to have a website vendor specifically. And I like to think of these two common mistakes in food analogies. I'm a foodie guy, cookie cutter websites don't cut it. There's kind of this food theme going on. So I have these two problems that I call the large menu problem, or my cousin can cook problem. So here in my local town, there's a restaurant. It's a diner, and if you go there, the website's 20 pages long. We've all been there. They cook, you know, breakfast. They got dinner. They got Mexican food. They got Greek food. They got Italian food. They got pizza. They got all this stuff, and really, it results in just an average experience, right? Nothing is done really well because it's not tailored to anything specific. It's tailored to a general audience. And then the next problem is the my cousin can cook problem. Cooking's complex. I know this from experience, and there's a big difference between someone, who cooks and a professional chef, right? So how does this translate into, website speak, right? So the large menu problem is like using an ad agency, with no niche or specialization, right? They're designed to cover a large audience. They're there to make sure a lot of people are taken care of. They're not focused on a specific niche or a specific specialization, right? And then the my cousin can cook is like using the I know a guy strategy, right? So I've been in the website industry for 15 years. I see this problem come up all the time. I used to be this guy, right? When I first started, I was building websites. I wanted, to be the I know a guy. But what can happen here is, yeah, you can get a website for cheap, but at the end of the day, when it comes to supporting that website or building that website further, it's like when you just know a guy, you're going to be kind of relying on him to make sure things get done. I remember I had a friend of mine out of college. He had this really great idea. He had this like questionnaire thing that he was building that he was trying to captivate his audience with. And he went on Fiverr, had someone, pay for it, built it, did all of this, and then it didn't quite work right. So it's like, yeah, he didn't pay a lot of money for it, but when he wanted to support it again, he couldn't get a hold of the guy. The guy wasn't around anymore. And now all of a sudden he had something that was completely useless because it didn't function the way we wanted it to. So where you're going to end up losing is basically in these three areas. So I like to think of it this way. Websites are complex. Doing them right requires a level of expertise and effort. So where we're going to see, a non-specific vendor losing is scalability, specialization, and, non-seamless integrations. So we'll dive into these, each of these more specific here. So scalability. So ultimately, scalability is about building a website for the future, right? I like to look at it in, building a website in kind of three general steps here. Obviously, these steps you're going to go through these steps multiple times throughout the process and as you have a website. But step one, get online. Step two, build a presence. Step three, innovate, right? So getting online, that's the hurdle here, right? We need to have a website, but another part of this is building that user experience, that we've talked about. A fun little fact here is, 23% of online shoppers, will share about a positive experience that they've had with a website to at least 10 people, right? So additionally, if you look at the contrast there, 13% of users, if they have a bad experience, will tell 15 or more people. So like I kind of mentioned earlier, it's all about if we have a good user experience and all of that stuff, not only does it help that consumer in that moment get to where you want them to go, they're going to explain that to their friends, to their families, and they're going to go, hey, I went on this website. I was able to find what I need really easily. Why don't you go check it out? I know you're interested in this, right? So step two is that building that presence, right? So you got that website, you need to now get consumers onto your website, you need to get them using it, you need to start doing all that stuff. So that means building your SEO, that means starting to show inventory, adding content, stuff like that, right? Managing those leads that are coming in. So this is why at Broadlam, we have so many tools that kind of help with this step, right? We have the product catalog, we have the enriched catalog data, we have visualized shopping, sampling, ordering, content creation, PPC, dealer HQ, RLM for lead management, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of tools that we utilize to really help you build your presence, grow your business, and really make sure your website's working for you. So this last step here, I call it innovate. This is the fun part. This is where, things are moving smoothly. Things are working. Now, how do we take this to the next level, right? And this is where it's time to kind of change the industry, right? So if you think about Broadloom, that's really, really what we want to do. So we really do steps 1 and 2 so that we can ultimately do step 3. All right. Awesome. So the key takeaway here is to think about it this way. It's easy to think about your website now, but what about the future? Where are you headed? What are you trying to accomplish? And are you making sure that your website is getting you there? And then are you really working with a vendor that's going to be able to help you? All right. So the next one here, specialization. I like to say it's always better with friends. Me and my wife recently went on a vacation for 2 weeks, and after a week, we were going, man, I really wish we had some friends here. This would be a lot better. Well, it's the same thing, with a website vendor. You want to find a vendor that's going to be able to work with you, who knows your customers, who knows your business, who does all that stuff. Have you ever tried to explain your business to someone else, especially who's not in the industry? As soon as you get into the details of the specifics of things, that's most people either don't care or they don't really know anything about it. That's why you want to have a vendor that's going to be working with you. So some of those benefits are going to be, tailored solutions for your industry based on data from your industry. And then ultimately, like I've mentioned before, you want your website to continue to grow with your business and for the future and all that stuff. So that means, it's going to constantly have to be, seeded in a sense to keep it growing. And that's where we talk about, the content and all that stuff and continue that user experience and all of that. So to give you kind of an example of this, I was recently working on a new feature. We were talking about a new menu item, and my background came from automotive websites. So I was like, oh yeah, we used to do this. I think this will work. If we do this and we can do this and we can do that, right? And one of the guys here at Broadloom basically said, that's a really great idea, but that's not going to work with, the consumers. And he explained it to me, and I went, yeah, that's a really great point. Because here's how, automotive, they buy cars like this, they do that. Flooring dealers buy, flooring consumers buy products like this and this, and those are different. So it's like, yeah, it solves this problem over here, but in the end, it's not going to be the best for the consumer, right? So that's the benefit of having, a specific team dedicated to your business, is they know stuff like that. And instead of making those mistakes through experience, we can do that stuff through understanding. So, the takeaway here is, you want to work with a vendor who understands you and your needs and let them help you. Does your vendor know your business? If so, are you pulling on them as the experts, right? It's like collaborating. We should be sharing both information from both ends, right? I'll tell you what we're learning. Hopefully you're sharing with me what you're learning so that we can come together and we can do that innovation step that we talked about earlier, right? Awesome. So the last point here, seamless integrations, right? And I say data is king. Everything runs off of data nowadays. And as a flooring dealer, what do you need to consider when it comes to the data and the integration? There's a lot of data that goes into your websites. There's a lot of data that's coming out of your websites. What do you do with that? How do you utilize it? What's the best way to take advantage of it? What's the best way to show it? So some of the points that I talk about here is, catalog integration, right? So non-flooring website vendors are going to have a hard time managing all the different products and different product lines. You guys know there's tons of them out there. And, if they're not helping you with that, that means you're going to have to be manually doing all that yourself. That's going to be hours, upon hours and stuff like that. And it is important to have a catalog, right? We've seen that consumers spend up to 12 hours researching just before coming into the store. So we want to make sure that our products are displayed, that the data is there, that it's filled in, that it's accurate, all this stuff, because we know, your consumers are going to be wanting to look at it. That's why we, also show the visualization shopping experience, because that cuts down on time in the store. That's why we offer samples and stuff like that, and do all of that different stuff to make sure that that catalog experience, that experience when consumers are looking at products, is going to be the best that it can be, right? So the next one here is, lead management, right? So consumers come to your website, they fill out a form, now what, right? So it's like you spend all this time, you spend all this energy, you do all this stuff, building a website, making sure that it works, focusing on the user experience, getting your inventory, all that stuff set up, all to capture this lead or to get a phone call. Well, we want to make sure that we're utilizing that and capitalizing on that and making sure that we're making the most out of that, right? And that's why Broadloom's invested into tools like DHQ and RLM to help dealers like you better manage, their leads and making sure that they're actually converting on those and taking those, consumers and turning them into an actual prospect, right? Converting them down the pipeline so that their sale, so it actually translates into sales, right? And then I also have reporting here, right? So knowing and understanding what's going on in your website is going to be important. This ought to be the thing that is really driving your changes, showing you what's working, showing you what's not working, because you can have all the understanding in the world, and what you're going to find out is that some things that work over here aren't going to necessarily work for you. The way that you adjust and you adapt is by, checking out your reporting. That's why we offer a lot of options available for reporting to be able to see what's going on your website, how much traffic, all that stuff, what's happening, because because it's ultimately going to help us and help you continue to drive that website forward. And then the last point here is third-party tools. This is a big part of integrations. There's a lot of third-party tools out there. Some of them are helpful, some of them are not so much helpful. But when you do find the ones that do work really well and are going to really boost your business, you want to be able to integrate with those relatively easily on your website. And if that's something you're doing on your own, or if you're working with a larger vendor and stuff like that, they might not have those integrations for, the specialized product. And that's why, here at Broadloom is we've partnered with a lot of, third-party things like Podium and AudioEye and more, just to make sure that, really we're taking advantage of some of these great third-party tools and those integrations that they kind of have to offer, right? So really, just to kind of summarize this point here, there's a lot of data that goes in, there's a lot of data comes out, and we want to make sure that we're really taking advantage of that and we're, utilizing those integrations. And that's why at Broadloom, we continue to integrate things tighter, from one experience to the end and all of that stuff. And that's why that's a big focus for us. So kind of the key takeaway here is, we want to find a solution that will seamlessly work together with the tools that you need. And I like to think of it like this, does your website play nice with others, right? So is your website a good friend? Does it work with the things that you need it to work? Does it do what you need it to do, right? So just some final thoughts here. If you want your website to win, you want to really avoid the large menu and the my cousin can code problems. And the way that we do that is by realizing that we're going to lose in scalability, we're going to lose in the specialization, we're going to lose in the integration. So that's where we want to focus. We want to put our attention, we want to put our focus on those three things. So scalable solution, specialized experts, and tools that integrate. And at Broadloom, that's exactly what we do. So our goal is to really help you guys, grow into the future by working as a team and building products that are going to help continue to grow your business in the long term. So awesome. So we'll open this up to Q&A. If you have a question, feel free to throw it in the chat. All right. So how is Broadloom continuing to drive better user experience for the consumer? Great question. Yeah. So I think one of the things that we tend to do here is we're constantly refining our templates, constantly refining our themes, looking at those, adding new ones, making sure that we have a really diverse portfolio of different products that we can offer and stuff like that, and making sure that they're unique. And then what's nice is we're actually able to, do A/B testing and stuff like that to make sure that they're not only they're pretty, but they're actually performing the way that they should be. So great question. All right. Is there anything new coming that will help my website? Another great question. Yeah, we got a couple of things in the pipeline, some big stuff that I don't know if I can quite spoil yet. But one of the things that I'll talk about here is we're working on mobile bottom navigation. So this will be another thing that will essentially boost the mobile experience, right? So we talked about 50+% of consumers are viewing things on mobile, right? So we want to make sure that mobile experience is the best. And one of the things that research has found is a mobile bottom navigation actually helps that, right? So if you think about it, your thumb to reach up top has to kind of reach, but if there's something right down the bottom, you can click. So we'll be adding that to the websites that'll have some click to calls, click to form stuff, click, to view your inventory, kind of get that consumer to where you want them to go in one step, right? So that's pretty neat. That'll be coming down. Got a bunch of other stuff in the pipeline that we're kind of working on and figuring out as well. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming, but great question. All right, what can I do to better partner with Broadloom when it comes to helping my website grow? Awesome question. Yeah, I think, I kind of mentioned this before, but I think the best thing we can do together is really, really share, right? So make sure that you're sharing what your consumers are finding, what your consumers are seeing, what your experience is. You're really the expert in this, and you're going to be helping us as much as we want to help you, right? So I know it's, I've seen it where people fall into the mindset of, well, you're the website vendor, just do it, just take care of it, right? That would be just like, you're the flooring expert, just take care of it, right? So the more we can collaborate, the more we can share, the more we can do all that stuff, the better we're going to be able to innovate together, the better we're going to understand your guys' needs, the better that we're going to be able to build new products. Obviously, the other side of it is, taking advantage of the services and stuff like that that we do offer to help really benefit that experience. So awesome. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Well, thank you again for joining today's webinar. If you have any further questions, on website trends or how your website can be better, or if you want to just talk and kind of collaborate, I'm happy to take an email, set up a call, do all that. You can email me at rob.warning@broadloom.com. But awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time. Just a heads up, there will not be a webinar next week, but we'll continue this webinar Wednesday, and we'll continue to bring you guys new